Hey gang, welcome back to my videography series. What episode are we on? I guess episode 14 by now. Yeah, it's hot today. But I hope you are, well, wherever you are. Alright, so recently my schedule has changed and it's kind of went into its own little routine. So I figure in today's episode, why not talk about a routine of my own? So in today's episode, I will discuss my old travel routine. So when I was about 11 years old, my father moved to Staten Island. So starting in about 1991 or maybe even as late as early 1992, up until I started college in 1998, I had a ritual of visiting his home every 2 weeks. This was done religiously, with a few exceptions. Sometimes weeks were skipped or outright canceled. I usually went on Friday night, but sometimes Saturday morning. Occasionally, I spent more than the weekend, sometimes holidays and such, but I'll get more into it. So, I'm going to focus on the regular Friday night routine. As I already mentioned, my father moved to Staten Island in late 1991, while the rest of my family continued to live on Long Island. So, once every 2 weeks, he would drive my younger brother and I to his home. Very rarely, my older brother would come with us as well, but as I mentioned in another video, he had his own life and preferred not to waste his time with us. He got a car in the mid 90s and would either drive there himself one day and then drive back, or pick us up on Friday nights and then return home the same night. So, for the most part, he was not involved in our routine. So, our routine starts on Friday when I return home from school. I usually completed my homework that Friday, but sometimes would need to take some of it to be completed over the weekend. Then I would have dinner and wait to be picked up. Usually, pickup was at 7 at night, depending on traffic conditions. Hardly ever later than 9 p.m. If it was a Saturday pickup, then about 9 a.m. Then comes the 45-minute to 1 hour drive to Staten Island. Sometimes as long as 2 hours, depending on traffic conditions. I remember early on, this was actually exciting because I was not familiar with the environs, but eventually this dulled over time. We often spent this time in conversation, discussing our weekly activities and future plans, things learned and whatnot. But inevitably, the conversations died down to awkward silence. So, 6 months to a year later, as I mentioned previously, my father bought my younger brother and I Game Boys to keep us entertained. So conversation completely stopped at that point, as I became too immersed in Super Mario Land or any of the other titles. So eventually we arrived, at which time we were left to our own devices. At the time, my father had a Super Nintendo, which he kept as an incentive to visit him. But often I would take it back home to finish whatever game of the week I was involved in, and then continue taking it back and forth until he coughed up money to get my younger brother and I our own systems. Then all I needed was to bring the games back and forth. So, I often busied myself with that on Friday night. We sometimes watched a movie or played cards as well. He loved playing Crazy Eights because he was fairly skilled and usually beat us, making him happy. But for the most part, Friday night was our, or should I say, my time. So Fridays came and went. Then, Saturday morning. This was the most ritualistic. I usually woke up early, say around 7 a.m., and played SNES. Then at about 8 a.m., my father would drive us to a diner for breakfast where we would converse while we ate. Our most frequented diner was the Colonnade on Highland Boulevard. On Saturday pickups, he would take us to the Pancake Cottage in Hicksville. I don't know what became of that establishment. Invariably, I would eat pancakes. It wasn't until I got a bit older, say 15 or 16, when I expanded my options to include eggs or something else. My younger brother usually got pancakes or waffles, which he preferred. So after breakfast, we would return to my father's apartment and watch television. It was around this time that the computer animated cartoon Reboot started airing, and we always watched it every Saturday. After that, I would set up our family board game, Hero Quest. We actually started playing Hero Quest before my father moved to Staten Island, but it was later incorporated into our routine. So, that would usually last an hour or so. I loved Hero Quest because even then I loved storytelling and wanted to create my own scenarios for my audience. Admittedly, they started growing tired of it after about 2 or 3 years. We had 2 expansion packs, so plenty to work with. And then after I exhausted them, I started making my own material for it as well. Good times. After the game, my father would prepare lunch and I would play SNES. Then we had lunch together, often watching something on television at the same time. Afterwards, we would do something together, either play Super Mario Kart or Crazy Eights, at which point my father would begin preparing dinner. It usually took about an hour to prepare, so I would return to SNES. Then we had our dinner, usually around 6 or half past, sometimes watching TV together as we ate. We often had some movie to watch. Then we would play together again until about 7 p.m. when Hercules came on. We always watched this and Xena, and later on Sinbad as well. So this lasted something like 2 hours. Sometimes we watched a movie afterwards, or I would go back to SNES. And that would be it for Saturday. Then, a fateful Sunday. My father would prepare a huge breakfast every Sunday morning while I watched cartoons and played SNES. After breakfast, we would either watch TV or play together. At which point, my father would get to work on lunch. This was my SNES time. We would have lunch and play games. Then, at 4 p.m., the magic would end and we would be driven home. Another tearful 45 minutes to an hour. We often ate dinner at home, and that would end the ritual. Well, there really isn't much to it, but it continued for something like 7 years. We occasionally did other things besides, but infrequently, like go to the cinema or play pool. In the rare instances my older brother was there, we would focus more on him, and I would have less time to play video games. We would play more cards or go somewhere, watch TV, and chat. I really don't know what my younger brother did during the times I was there. As I said, I sometimes did my homework there, either Friday nights or Saturday afternoons. I don't think my younger brother often did any homework there. He tended to spend a lot of time in the kitchen while I was in the living room. We did share a bed while my father slept on the sofa. My younger brother sometimes watched me play games or helped my father prepare meals. And we often went food shopping together, either Friday nights before we set out or after breakfast on Saturdays. Then we all put away the groceries together. My father already had some health problems even then and couldn't really do a lot of the work. And later on, he spent more time on the computer. I might add that I did visit him even after I started college, just not as frequently as my college life took up more of my time, and I was no longer living at home at the time. I got a car when I was 20, and sometimes drove to visit him. My younger brother got a car when I was about 23 or 24, and he sometimes drove us as well. When I was working at AmeriCorps, our visitations became virtually non existent. But I continued to visit my father up until just before the time I moved to China. And there you have it, my religious visitation routine. I hope you found this video entertaining and even insightful. If you are so inclined, give it a like and subscribe, or even consider supporting me on my Patreon. Link below. Thanks again for your time, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.